Hello everybody. Alright, so we got the zoomed in screen up. So I'm going to start off by basically catching up to where I am in the project. And that basically revolves around, I took a little bit of a light couple of weeks because I had a lot of stuff to do at work. And it was stressful and required overtime and things like that. But I got a lot of really good work done this weekend. It basically catches me up to where I want to be, more or less. I think that things are still pretty unpolished. But the main thing that I'm going to discuss today are mainly the dialogue system. I'm going to run through that. I'm going to set up all the character comments of what the character says when you walk around the world, and what the character is going to say when you see certain things. So I'm going to make the list of that. I'm basically just moving it from here to the Trello so I can keep better track of it, or from a document that I have to the Trello. And then I'm going to implement those. So right now in the engine, I basically just have a little zoomed in so that way we can see the text easier, but this is really hard to see. Yeah, what is that's from the light probe. Okay, yeah. So we have this cylinder here. Right now this is the only thing that I have that is a note. So the way it's set up is basically if you look at it for a certain amount of time, what it's going to do is it's going to make note of the fact that you saw it, that you comprehended it, and that's kind of arbitrary, but it'll take some tweaking. Basically, I want it to be like the player is sort of actively clicking a button, but without them having to say, "Oh, I looked at that" every single time. So it's automated to the best that we can, and that would mean that an audio clip would play. Text would pop up on screen. That would be like the caption for it, which is what we're doing right now. And then we're going to set this global. It's not really global, but it's this variable that is stored on the dialogue system. I'm going to set that to true, so that way I can see that the character saw the phonograph. And so, as I add more functionality, basically the way I'm going to handle this is just with events like this. So, for instance, with the phonograph. You're going to want to listen to the cylinder. At least you can listen to the cylinder and get more information that way. So if you do that, then that would just be another event call to set a different variable. So this is just tracking that it saw it. And so I'm going to set up this kind of system on everything that I can. Actually, one more thing I have to do right now just before I forget is I need to make it so that there's project settings, right? Physics, I need to make it so that raycast will hit triggers. Okay, that's already there. So yeah. Right now this is a collider, but I'm just gonna have that set to be a trigger now. So that way it doesn't actually have any collision associated with it. And so I'm gonna test that really quick just to make sure. I adjusted some of the lighting. I got a lot of the 2018 issues that were there resolved. So if I stare at this for a while, yeah. So it says a note added about William's phonograph. She says, why was I even listening to this? And the note is added to the items. So here we go. I woke up and William's phonograph was playing on its desk. So that would be a note that's added to your journal. And that would also affect what is basically the final part of this whole scenario, which is the conversation. So if you listen to the phonograph, you're going to get more information, and then you can use that information, or rather that information will unlock additional options for the dialogue. So the interior is looking really nice. I have a new build up. There's still some UV issues, just in a couple of places. Like there's one here and there's one here, and I think there's one of the walls in here is a little wonky. But so I added a few more content, added the little hidden thing underneath the stairs we can store stuff in. I'm not really sure that I'm going to do anything with it. It might just be sort of like a red herring, just to have a more interesting location, basically. Added a new bed. Obviously all the texturing is temporary, but it's just to show that the UVs are ready for more final textures. This thing right here is a drawer. I'm going to put toys in, and the player can dynamically open and close that just like they can doors. Yeah, new bed. Very similar to this one, but this one's just like smaller, more basic. This one has some like elaboration and like a double mattress setup. Let's see, what are some more things? Okay, so I have this set up to where the blood spatter will set a variable as well. And I think this is a little bit new. Basically, I just threw some temporary textures on these like placeholder things that are all in sightline. It definitely seems like there needs to be more density here and like building up to the water. I ended up moving the coastline a little bit closer, just because it felt like there was like a ton of distance between the docks and any view you would get from the house, which I think that's kind of what I was going for originally, but because I don't want too much like verticality. I don't want it to seem like you're looking really far downhill at the dock. It's a little bit more effective to just, you know, see the ship. You get it as a ship. You can tell that's probably like a dock area. If you look over there, you'd see where the lighthouse was, and you'd get where you were. But there just needs to be a little bit more density in the buildings around this area, leading up to the dock, and probably along the dock area as well. So let's get into the Corley narrative elements. So the new dialogue system that I have, I don't really know that I can zoom in on this so much. But so this top part, this description, this is just the flow of the system. I have the Trello here is public. So let me get a link to that. I'm going to post that in chat real quick. So if you ever want to, you know, keep track of any development or anything like that, you can do that on the Trello link. It'll be added to the links in the bottom of the Twitch page at some point. So this is just the flow of the system, kind of how I'm thinking that it'll work, how it'll feel to go through. And as far as functionality, so we have the options that the player has are going to populate over time. So that's already completed. Each response has a time limit, so the longer your character is thinking, so there's going to be a few responses that'll be immediate, and they'll be there no matter what. And if you wait a little bit longer, and then in addition to that, if you have more information, so if you've investigated more things and looked at more things, then you're going to have more options that pop up. So I'm not really sure how this is going to play out in practice. It might be something that it's a little bit more, maybe like not so much like mechanically dense, but a little bit more like a gimmick where just some options will pop up and go away at certain times, and not really. I don't want people to be waiting around, and I hope that the time limit kind of encourages people to be like, all right, that's the option I was looking for, so I'm going to pick that. And I know that some people are going to kind of wait around a little bit, so it'll be balancing about how that's timed. Another question that I don't really have resolved about it is whether or not it should be delayed till after the person is finished speaking, or if you should be able to kind of interject and have these like maybe preemptive conversation options that'll pop up before they're finished speaking, and then like as they finish speaking, those would go away, and then some more well thought out, like more complete informational options would pop up. I think that that's kind of an ideal. Having started writing this dialogue system over the weekend, or not this dialogue system, but having written an example dialogue over the weekend, it seems like while that would maybe solve a lot of the issues that this system has, where it feels a little bit arbitrary, kind of, whether or not you have the option. So if something goes away and you wanted to pick it, it's going to feel a little bit arbitrary. But that kind of ties back into the main thing that I have for this dialogue system, which is right here, which is that everything is from the perspective of the character the player is controlling, rather than from the perspective of potential player archetypes. So the reason why this is different from how it's normally done is that it would normally be like we have this idea of these few different kinds of ways that people play. So for like the Fallout series, there's usually, I mean, if you look at Fallout 4, it was very obvious. There was like the straightforward option, there was the sarcastic option, there was the negative option if you wanted to like defer or you didn't agree with something, and then there was like a wild card option. I think maybe the sarcastic option was the wild card option sometimes. I forget exactly what their breakdown was, but they've talked about it before, about like they had a very predefined way they wanted each option to to let the player express themselves. And so I want to kind of step away from that a little bit and have it be based on the character, because this whole situation is very heavily based on the character that the situation is in. So that you're reading documents from this person's husband, you're in their house, they're trying to piece together some more information. You're in the town that they live in, and like you're trying to piece all these things that are very personal. And so having like a snarky or a comedic option to say doesn't really fit with such a focused experience. So it's all written from the perspective of the character itself. So if something is stressing the player out, they're going to have 3 options that maybe get different information or push the conversation a certain way, but each of those 3 options are the character being stressed out. There's not going to be one where they want to laugh it off and one where they want to like completely ignore how they're feeling. That's just not going to happen in this. So the populating over time should feel a little bit better paired with that, because it's going to feel like the person is thinking things through, as opposed to feeling like you're losing potential ways to express yourself. Hopefully. That's the idea. Like I said, still going to be tweaked. The dialogue system continues progressing even when the menu is closed. So this is an idea I had a really long time ago for dialogue, when I worked on like a much earlier version of this project a few years ago, where basically I don't want time to stop, and I don't want people to be waiting on the player when they are speaking to them. So it's not like you're running the conversation, you say, I want to talk about this, they say, okay, this is what I think about that, and maybe they shoot a question back, but even if they do that, you're given the option to kind of drive the conversation where you want again, because they're waiting on you for feedback to do something. Whereas having the dialogue system continuously progress in a game where you're kind of intentionally given a lot of free mechanical control over the environment. Like you can drag items around, you can open doors manually. So I want kind of dialogue to be manual as well. You're opting into dialogue, other people are opting into dialogue as well. If you have a system where like I press A and that starts dialogue, there's an entitlement associated with that, which in the scope of a larger project with these kind of conversational or narrative elements, other people should be opting into the conversation just as much as you're opting into the conversation. So if you try to talk to someone who hates you, and most games, maybe they won't say much to you or they won't say anything to you, but at the same time, those people who won't say much to you because they hate you usually don't have critical information, because if they were going to lock that off, it could potentially like make the game unplayable for certain people. Like if you choose a faction, maybe you lose out on faction quests, maybe you lose out on some perks that aren't necessarily related to your main goal, or maybe would help with your main goal, but aren't like, it's not like critical information that without it you can't progress. So by making it sort of an opt-in conversation, it allows for a lot more flexibility with how you structure things like quests, how you structure relationships with characters. So in this, if you say, I'm not going to talk, you like close the menu, the conversation's still going. That person's still waiting for you to say something, and there should be a deferred answer for not saying anything for every dialogue option that you have. I think going back to like a larger scope version of this, maybe that's not really sustainable. That's definitely possible. But I think that for such a focused experience as this, where really there's only this one conversation that is the culmination of all of your investigation, like throughout the house, then I think it fits for that at least, and maybe it's something that needs to be tweaked later. Or removed even. Because the opt-in conversation system definitely makes it to where the player is more in control, and they can engage like how they want, and it makes more sense to them what's happening. Like they're not like caught off guard by a character in any way. But this is essentially a horror game. Like it's structured based on a horror game, even though it's a little bit more mechanically dense than the average horror game. But disallowing the player to choose when they're entering conversations all the time is kind of a sort of disempowerment, in the same way that like some horror games don't have weapons in them if they're meant to be horror games specifically, so that you are disempowered and you're focusing on different elements of the game and you feel a little bit panicked. I mean, obviously you shouldn't feel panicked because you don't have control over the conversation, but it's just one more thing that makes you feel like you aren't in control. So that's what this says. If the player doesn't respond, dialogue will progress in a predefined way. It says technically implemented, but I haven't written any of these branch points. The idea here is that I mentioned here is mostly that things should sort of skip chunks of the conversation. So if you choose not to engage, it shouldn't necessarily bring you into a new branch of conversation that's like not talking somehow unlocks more information. It shouldn't really be that way. It should be more that you're trying to like shut down the conversation. You're intentionally trying to deny information. If you feel like, you know, lying would be too obvious or you'd be, you know, caught anyways, so maybe it's better just not to say anything there. And so it should kind of skip parts of the conversation. So it should like hurt your relationship to some degree with the person during the conversation. Which, you know, maybe you want that, maybe you don't. It's kind of, in this situation, you're sort of weighing how you feel about this person. I mean, the name of the game is Gaslight for a reason. They're intentionally trying to convince you that you're crazy, that like you shouldn't trust your instincts. The stuff that you find around the house that's evidence might not be evidence. It might just be something that's there intentionally to confuse you. So like you have what you believe, they have what they're trying to convince you to believe, and they're trying to like create that like mixed feeling within you. So if you're trying to break down that relationship by not talking to someone, that's a very intentional thing in this sort of situation where you might not have a reason to trust someone, or you're trying to show that you don't trust someone or just don't want to engage at all. So I have test dialogue, which I'm going to be erasing and adding in. Well, I have test dialogue that's in the engine, and then I have test dialogue that I've written out of engine, and I'm going to be adding that in. And then I need to add polished dialogue, which basically means that I have to run through the dialogue 1,000 times. So the responses are added based on notes made about evidence found. So this kind of goes back to the journal, where what happens is if I see something, you know, it flips a bool, it'll automatically add a note to my journal about what I saw. And so it's being tracked in two ways, right? It's being tracked passively for the player, and it's being tracked like mechanically in the engine or in the game. So the way it's going to work is that you have all these notes that are automatically added, and then you can actively add that to your list of active notes, and then that's what's going to make it to where it actually gives you more options. So it's not so much right now. The way it's going to be structured is that if you see something that's interesting, we're going to say, okay, you saw that, you're keeping track of it, you have the option to discuss that particular interesting thing you saw or that piece of evidence you saw. But eventually what it's going to do is that piece of evidence is just going to add a note to your journal. You have to look through your notes and say, I want, like, this I think is important. Like this blood stain here, this is important. I want to add that to my active notes, and that way I can bring up the blood stain to people. Whereas if it's just in your passive notes, that just means it's something that happened. If you're not actively remarking to the game that you're interested in that or you think it's important, then it's not going to affect anything. So just for right now, it will still. So that's why this isn't completed, even though it is basically implemented. There's a couple of base responses, which I mentioned. There's a couple of responses that are just the natural inclination of the character, not based on additional information you gather. And what this should kind of do is, it should give you a way to progress, but it's going to give you a way to progress specifically in a way that you may not have any information. So it could be that you think the information, or the option from the information you have, you don't think that that's relevant, and so you're just going to go with the vanilla option, like, oh, tell me more, or why do you think that sort of thing. Like you're gonna move along like a normal conversation. You're not gonna say, oh, what about this thing? So there are these natural responses that just allow you to move things forward, kind of let things flow without. It's sort of like the equivalent of not speaking in normal games that have dialogue systems like this. They usually have these like branch points where every point is meant to change stuff. But in this, it's not so much that you're controlling the conversation. You're sort of like it's like dialogue chess, sort of. you don't want to say something that you don't want to give away too much information. And if you give away information earlier on in a conversation, it's going to branch it differently than if you waited with that information. So it might be more beneficial to not bring up like all this evidence you have until after the person has incriminated themselves throughout the conversation, that sort of thing. Responses are added based on notes. Yeah, so their responses are added automatically based on items you see. That's a temporary thing. Conversations. Actually, this is actually yeah, that's actually implemented as well. Responses are added. Oh, I guess notes aren't made right now. But automatically throughout conversations, if you get to a certain conversation point that might be hidden behind some stuff, it'll branch that accordingly. And this is just some extra features. You can look at that in the link that's below the stream, or I posted it in chat earlier. These are just some things that I want to have in a more fully featured one. So I'm going to go ahead and add all the character comments for items that I have written up. Let me just try to make sure that... It might be a little hard to see the text. You might need the full screen. But the left side is more what's important. This is kind of what I went through when I went through the narrative planning. I have the narrative beats, so... Okay, so this would be... Oh man, these are I forgot these are like placeholder. I'll leave them as placeholder because I just wanna add them in to the engine so they can be there to find bugs and add a little bit more flavor. So empty alcohol. I'm gonna say I don't remember last night. But God, that music is loud. This seems like a default thing, since this is just character comments. You know, actually, there's not really reason to actually comment on that. I think, like saying the music is loud. I don't intend on making it particularly loud. The player's gonna notice the music. There's only a couple things in the room with you. The most interesting thing would definitely be the desk on my own page here. Oh, okay. Yep. So I mentioned this. So this is something I elaborated on in a separate document. Actually, is it the same document? It might be this. So I might want to add a separate thing for notes, or maybe I should call this evidence. Just so I can keep track of this as well. So this would be a note to self, is how I defined it when in the narrative, or in the dialogue. So it says, don't trust that person. I think this is a little on the nose. What did I do? The way I changed it was that it's more something that, something she would write while she was drunk. So, I do not want these to be separate options. If I press save, is it going to do that again? No, okay. So, melt the cylinder. They will question about being attacked. Don't trust everyone. So these are kind of just notes to self that you'll find when you pick up the lantern. Probably make note of that. So you should be looking at the lantern, you pick it up, you notice there's a note there, and so that'll hopefully teach you to pick, like, that you can pick up items, equip them, and also teach you to examine notes. Okay, so going back to character comments. So chair blocking door. This is going to be where she like acknowledges. Let's change this slightly. It's going to be why would I do this? Whatever. So let's slightly change. So chair blocking the door. She wants to like comment on that. So if you see the door, so I guess not all of these will be things that actually, you know, mark rules. Like seeing the chair, that doesn't really matter. You kind of have to in order to progress at all. So you move the chairs and you open the door. Hallway to the left. Okay, so Grace's room door. This is their missing child's room. Okay. I'm gonna say that this is end of hall. So I was thinking of maybe activating this with just like a volume that when the player walks into it, it'll play a little speech. But I think that it's just as good to have sort of a similar system that I have for the items. So if you're walking down the end of the hall, you're looking down the end of the hall. I can kind of tell what your intention is. Or rather, it doesn't really matter what your intention is here, but I can tell that it would be a right time to play this. So it doesn't feel safe when it's so quiet in the house. Just to build the tension a little bit. Okay, so this would be family photo in the bedroom. I think that's a little too on the nose expositional, but I think that was kind of the point when I wrote it. Okay, I'll probably divide this up. I'll make one for just volumes that you walk into. I'll make a separate thing. Because it does make more sense for the going downstairs one as well. I don't need I have a line about finding the pistol. I don't need that. Not really relevant because I have a different way planned to get that information across. That's going to be in the there's going to be like a hidden message at the end of the music recording on the cylinder. That's where William's going to like prompt to look for the hidden compartment in the room. So the blood spatter kind of, maybe I could just write this differently. Instead of more blood, I don't really want to have logic that determines what note should be played depending on the order. Because like if there's two different splotches of blood, I just want them each to have unique dialogue, not have like the dialogue swap depending on the order, or not necessarily have it be independent of the order. I guess is what I mean. So if you see the provides weapon. Yo, what? This thing's saying handprint. Alright, that's weird. Google thinks that handprint is one word, saying it's hyphenated. If you see the improvised weapon, that reminds me, do I actually have that? What was the weapon? Window. Yeah, I don't actually have that. I thought I imported everything, but maybe there's another like group of props that I don't actually have imported. I should do that. Point. Alright, so see that. That's one thing that I could do. Wait, so didn't get the, so see shock, what's the pistol problem? Oh, that's if you didn't see both the blood. Okay, we can change that then. We need to make this a little bit more generic, I guess. No, that's actually fine. Why am I saying C's? I realize I've been typing that. Need to write down the item, and then I know what I need to add the dialogue to. I implied that you see it. I don't know that I'm gonna spend time. How long has it been? It's been about 40 minutes, so I don't know that I'm gonna spend time. It's probably gonna take the rest of the time to implement as many of these as I can. And do some quick testing. So see the shotgun. Okay, so this has like different dialogue for each one. There's just no reason to mention it. The other line of dialogue actually works fine in both situations, so I'm just gonna keep that one. This one, okay, this is a flow thing. This isn't actually dialogue. Here's some ideas for it. Additional dialogue. Oh, I see. Okay, so the way I wrote this differently when I was doing the dialogue recently. My assumption when I was writing this is that her child is missing, and you're kind of trying to figure that out a little bit as well. I think that might actually make more sense than the way I wrote it in the dialogue. But the way I wrote it in the dialogue is that like she knows. I don't know which way to go with it. So the way I have it in the dialogue is that her child was taken, but was taken for like a specific reason. So, I mean, not a specific reason that she knows, and that's kind of part of the mystery in a different way. It's one more thing that kind of allows the person who she's talking to through the door to maybe seem more like a level-headed person by default, and to make you kind of question the character that you are a little bit. And I think that that might be important because people wouldn't by default question themselves. It's not like a normal state to be in a game to maybe be, be a bad guy or be crazy or anything like that. But I think that the idea that they would have maybe like authority in some way or maybe leverage, it kind of like makes people, it would make people that are more apt to trust people that are in, public servants and things like that, maybe would be a little bit more apt to trust the person, whereas people, which I think is the default. But by having this thing that kind of makes the character seem a little bit more unstable, like by having their character taken as opposed to, or taken by, the city, people of the city, people that work for the city, as opposed to her just being missing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know which way to go with it. I'll probably see which one works better for the dialogue. That'll probably be the way I go with it, because it just shouldn't change that much, but it does change. It does change a lot for how people perceive the situation you're in. I don't know that I'm gonna do this. I think that once the door is open, that's gonna be sort of the end in one way or the other. You open the door. Okay, so this is where I kind of realized like a potential plot hole, which is that I have no idea how the cylinder would be there. Like, so the ideas of the cylinder, if you listen to the music at the end, there's a message from her husband, and so I was like, all right, it's a little weird for him to just make an advance and leave around, but having him send it like by mail because he didn't feel like it was like safe for him to either tell her in person or make the recording while he was home, but to like send it there after the fact, like when he's got some distance from the city. So it coming like under false pretenses as a present, I think that kind of justifies it a little bit more. I mean, it's still a pretty weird thing, but kind of the point is that it would seem out of place. So there's going to be an empty present on the desk, and she'll make comment to that. So here, I don't really know that this goes here. This isn't really a character comment. We'll go with evidence. So cylinder in the phonograph. So this is the message from William. So he's going to be telling her where the pistol is. Yeah, he's going to say there's a pistol there, there's more information there. This is just a short thing to prompt you to go seek out that information so that you can be equipped to like deal with whatever he feels is awry. And then, I don't know that this isn't necessary, I feel like. He's pretty explicit. There's no reason for her to repeat that. I don't really have a way for... Oh, well, I guess I could just have it call a function at the end. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think that it's fine as is. There's no real reason to iterate. It's going to seem kind of weird if she talks to herself, stating the obvious a lot. I should try to keep it to be substantial things. So this is the content of the note. So this would be William's note in the wall. think I have more of this written somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. I actually have like specifically that written out. I think it's on my laptop. I should make sure I put that on here. I don't think it's on this. Yeah, it's not on this document. Okay, so this is just some stuff that I want there to be wall. Going for character comments. This is the note to self. Okay, so we're back to the evidence that I have written on here. So there's going to be that note which I already had. So these are 3 different notes. Okay. I don't want that to be formatted that way. One additional change I made was that let's see, do I have that written for the cylinder? Yeah, so he asked her to burn the pages in his journal, which is the journal that you're using, like write down in your notes. So he asked you to take the pages out of it and to burn them, and so now when you go downstairs, there's going to be like little scraps of paper around, and a few of them are going to have readable notes on them. But they're not really going to have anything significant on them, or probably even affect the dialogue anyway. They're mostly just, like, I just thought it would be a way to add flavor and sort of explain the journal in sort of a quick way by having it being mentioned. And plus, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit more, it's just extra, right? I think, honestly, hearing the phonograph, so, like, in order to hear the phonograph message, you have to stop the phonograph from skipping, so when you wake up, it's just going to be skipping on this little loop. You have to stop it, and you have to replay it. So I think that most people, if they hear the music going, if they aren't thinking, like, oh, this is probably significant because there's just music playing for seemingly no reason, then maybe they might listen to it then if they think that's a little weird, or a little too weird, I guess. But I think most people are just going to stop it, and then explore, like, the rest of the room and kind of move on. So I think that the replaying the cylinder is just like a little bit of extra flavor. It kind of guides you a little bit, but it's more for people that are actually, like, really digging in, right? It makes it a little bit easier for people that are really trying to, like, find more stuff. Like, if they're actually investigating, you might play the thing back because it's going to comment about how weird it is. It should seem weird to the player. And, like, the present being there, her saying, like, oh, it's not actually my birthday, but this is addressed to me as, like, a birthday present. So it might just draw more and more attention to the cylinder. And actually, you know what? Having mentioned that, I should probably mention when she sees the cylinder. But it's not my birthday, it's addressed to me, though. This must be where that, I don't know, how do you, that recording? How old is the term recording? At least, like, as far as using it as, like, a noun. Etymology? No, not etymology. Maybe the Oxford will tell me an era. Gonna put me on the right track. No pun intended. I'm gonna call it. Alright, I don't. This is too much to. I maybe can figure it out from reading that really detailed. Or, like, reading that really really going through like the granular language they're using that might indicate like its age or at least how it's used in different ways the word is used. I think I'm gonna call it a song recording. I'm just gonna assume that's weird enough that it might sound like if it's presented normally, it'll just seem like a weird thing. You'll get what I mean. Something in a wax cylinder seems a little bit weird too, because I feel like if you stored music on a wax cylinder, you probably wouldn't call the individual songs wax cylinders themselves, because it kind of more describes what the object is as opposed to the fact that it has music on it. That actually might be something to look up. What did they call wax cylinders? Phonograph cylinder. What is wax cylinder? Okay, maybe this will tell. Okay. Doesn't actually give a new term. Maybe they did call them wax cylinders. It's kind of weird, in my opinion. Alright, so that's the note to self. The longest note will be like found on the tip of the fire poker that's on the asset list. Make a list of assets as well. Since I have them here. So this I will actually try to make it put them all. Oops. There we go. So this time it actually worked. That was actually quite nice. Awesome. So the wine glass is actually done. Weapon I have modeled. I have a smoldering log. But I feel like I should probably revamp it just because it might not match with the other logs, but I guess if it's a smoldering one, it won't really matter if it looks a little bit different. Fresh logs I don't have, bloody handprint. I believe I do have that, but it's not in... I'm not really sure. I think I have the texture that I'm going to use for that, but it probably isn't finished, so I'm not going to check that. Pile of ash. Decoration on the mantle, I have no idea what this is. I don't know what... I guess it would be like a, you know, like a fish or like an animal head or something like that. I'll come up with something for that. I did not make the fire poker. And food. Cured meats. I think I made... You know what? Alright, I remember where I was at with making that, so... With making the props. I made some bookshelves. Made a short one and a tall one, and I made bookends. Made these things, so I should mark that down. Those are all things that aren't in yet. Let's see if I hopped around anything else. I need to make a new desk. Small basic bed. Fancy bed. Need the song. Oh, this is just general assets I need. This isn't just not just 3D models. Okay. Let's start putting these comments in. Maybe I'll run through the dialogue tree at the end. I believe it. Alright, so this shotgun. This is a noteworthy, right? That's what it's called, noteworthy object. There you go. Oh, I should probably switch. Actually, you know what? Keeping it zoomed in is maybe. Yeah, actually, I'll switch back. I'll just try to keep it as big as I can. But I have a high res monitor, so it might be a little hard to see. I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it large. So I don't think I'm going to do any of the variable things because I think that the way I'm going to set up the variables is going to be changed in the future, or at least the specific names. And yeah, actually, I don't really know that I'm actually going to track everything as variables. Wait, let me move that there. Put that there. There we go. This is probably a better setup. Okay, so empty alcohol bottle. I do not have an alcohol bottle currently. I'll make a dummy object for it. A very small alcohol bottle at the moment. There we go. Make it roll around and we'll call this. Very succinctly call it an alcohol bottle. This will be a noteworthy object. Alright, so this is probably a 3 for how big it'll show up in the journal, like 3 units high. The rest of this stuff is fine. Bottle. I believe this note here is what actually will show up, right? This is what's actually going to show up on the screen. Do I have to manually call the... Okay, the event is just for setting pools. That's what I thought. There we go, we got a bottle. Chair blocking door. Okay, yeah, so I have the chairs. Let's add that to... I guess I'll add it to... let's see. So if you click on this one, let me see how that actually works when you grab it. Because I think that it's going to lock my view in place, so I don't actually need to be looking at it all that much. Right, so 1,000, 2,000. Oh, there goes the alcohol bottle. Apparently my room is slightly slanted. So maybe I should just make it, oh wow, I kept the quotes on there. So we gotta make sure we get rid of those. Copy paste. It'll be the second one, I think. Noteworthy over the object. That's only one high. The object name is kitchen chair. So she's just questioning why she would barricade herself in here. It's totally fair. Alright, so now I need to set up one that I haven't quite done this way before. And this one I think won't actually, this one isn't actually gonna change a variable, it's not gonna really do anything. This one's just purely to convey information to the player. Let's get rid of the cube stuff, right? Just need this. Okay, so this is a trigger. It's going to be a noteworthy object. But all it's going to do, it's not going to do anything with the chunk. I don't know that... I think it's going to add a note no matter what. So maybe I should just add it in. I guess not all things that are notes should be things that are definitely going to add new content. Otherwise, you're always kind of missing out, and it's a little bit less like a critical thinking thing. Let's see, so the text chunk, what should show up in the journal? I can't bear Grace's empty room. Trying to keep my placeholder stuff as possible to go in the final one as I can, because I'm probably going to forget about some of these in the long term and not come back for them. Like clean them up. So this be Grace's door. Who is over here? I feel like this one's one I definitely need to come back and change. Now while Grace is still missing, like I don't know if she's gonna be missing or if she's gonna be taken. I can go ahead and duplicate this one. For now, just for testing, I'm gonna use the actually the exact same system here. Just vision. And this node actually, I'm not going to be too particular about how I place this, because the node can actually, if it goes through when I'm in a doorway or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of a generic comment. And once again, this would be one that normally wouldn't. It's not going to mechanically change anything. This would be end of call. Not exactly. I think that's probably too. Not exactly the most. I don't know. Period accurate comment. Make. Will do. I should change the name of these. Say the hall. Gotta make another object here. So this one will eventually be a physics object, and it's actually even a nice little opportunity to use a hinge in an interesting way, having it prop it up. That'll be cool to be able to like knock it down. I don't. So I guess it's kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm glad that another thing can use the physics hinge. You can like grab it and wiggle it, knock it over, that sort of thing. So this one isn't a trigger; it'll be a solid object. So. I think I maybe just copied this twice. So family photo. Photos existed now, right? I need to Google that. I think I do. I have no idea when. I know cameras are quite old, and there were cameras in the Civil War, but I'll double check. On a helpful source. Okay, yep, cameras existed. They even existed 20 years earlier, or at least 10 years earlier, seems. That's fine. They are a relatively well-off family, so it stands to reason they may have bought a photo at some point. Finish this. Okay, now we need downstairs. I need a little bit more space to see where I'm positioning this. Yeah. Let's full screen that now. Just give me a little bit more space. So, since we're doing it vision based, I'm gonna have it take up this whole area. You know what? Actually, maybe it should be definitely down the stairs to some degree. Yeah. Right around there. That way, if you drop off the stairs, you're still pretty likely to have been looking at it for a while. And if you're walking down, maybe it should be a little taller, just to make sure it blocks this area. I think like spaces like this are generally a bad idea. Yeah, actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, it should definitely be a little bit smaller. At least. Okay, yeah, this one definitely needs to be something that the player walks into while on the stairs. There will eventually be railing as well. This is actually a pretty good incentive to actually finish that soon. I'm kind of procrastinating it. But yeah, so like you want it to be the player gets here, they kind of have some vision on downstairs, they have vision on the area, probably looking around, so that's like a normal time for them to comment on walking downstairs. I swapped the positions of these? Okay, that's fine. Sort of a weak thing to even have a journal note for, but for right now it's necessary. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna to break anything, but having empty notes in the journal, it looks confusing. It looks like a bug. Having it actually display information, like debug information at the very least, totally worth it. Okay. So this would be more use of this. Yeah, so having the trigger volumes actually like get hit by raycast, it does kind of mess some elements up because I'm using a lot of interactivity with the raycasting. So I'll probably need to move these sort of things to a new layer, or at least move other mechanics to a new layer. But for now, you actually have to look directly at the fire to play this. So maybe I'll keep that in the future. Makes sense to say walking into the room. It also makes sense to say while you're intentionally like focusing on the fire. This one now needs its own trigger. Oh, it should be a noteworthy object as well. Also needs a box collider. Perfect. Okay, so there was blood by the fireplace. And found a blood stain. All right, yeah, that's some temporary dialogue. That's the kind of stuff I should avoid doing for things that are placed around the environment like that. Just make sure I don't forget. Might actually be too big for that, so I'll go ahead and make it 3 just to make sure that it fits internal. So I don't have an improvised weapon actually in here, but I do have one modeled. Like a chunk of a window frame, basically. What it's gonna be. Here. So it's basically just like a long edge, a little bit of like an offshoot. So 1 meter, be like 1.2 meters long, right? Quite a rigid body. Noteworthy objects. Improvised weapon. think I'm actually using the shorthand for notes for anything. Shouldn't be necessary. Okay, so there we got an improvised weapon placeholder. So I had the shotgun. I think I just didn't finish adding it, but I was adding that already. Yeah, I just didn't finish. The present the cylinder comes in, so I don't have that. This will be my present box. Big enough for the cylinder, right? More than big enough? Alright, maybe I should... no, that actually seems totally fine. Alright. Rigid body this as well. This is the last one I think I have prepared, and that's good. That means I did all of this. In the future, all I have to do is copy these onto a different object. And there, I can test with it now. That's good. So the note doesn't really seem to fit the actual present itself. I think I was planning on having this be like a little mail tag that's on it. So I'll probably make that what it is in the future. But for now, I'll try to. It would be this box. It's just placeholder anyway. Okay. Got all that done. What are the evidence pieces? Those are things that they need a more specific script, and they also need assets to be. Let's go in and try this out. Note about present. So let's open up the journal. Items. The cylinder came as a present addressed to me for my birthday. Go. That. Bring it up a little bit. Brighten it back down a little bit. Wait, does that not work? I guess you can't adjust. Ooh. I think maybe my reading light is too bright. This is weird. Yeah, it's the reading light. Okay. Let's adjust that. You know what it is that I changed the way the lighting, basically how much the darkness degrades the light edges, basically, so it doesn't actually... Before it was like, you know, you'd have a light that would go 15 meters, but it only looked like it was about 8 meters, because I was trying to keep like the shadows really tight and the light really tight. But I'd spread it out, gave it a little bit more open area for that, so that means that a lot of my lights are a little bit more bright than they need to be. Let's see. One of these is the reading light. There it is. So it's got actually very low intensity, so that's interesting. Maybe it matches. Does it? It might be matching the intensity of my lantern, which could be an issue because the way they have the new intensity set up in Unity for the lights, it's not actually like, it doesn't update in the editor. Yeah, like see, look, all right, so it was normal for a second there. Let me see. If I turn this off, no, it actually is the actual lantern is actually the issue. Why is the lantern being extremely bright? So it turns the white light. I feel like that's not correct. Intensity is quite high. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. If I turn that intensity all the way down, it still says it's 0, but it's clearly not 0. Turn it off, it's going to look completely different. But the intensity isn't actually... Oh, it's going up. Yeah. So it's resetting because of the script that I have that adjusts the brightness, but it's not actually showing the editor. It makes it really hard to debug issues like this. Because if I put the book away, it looks about right. Like a pretty dim light. Okay. How would I do this? Oh, I'm getting all the notes. Man. Alright, so that's leading me to realize another issue that I should probably work out now that I have so many things to test with. For each of these separate assets that are each representing things that will be in the final product. Okay, so even though it's bright, you can still you can tell what's going on here. These are all the correct messages that are showing up from these items. Yeah, but I need a way that can actually queue these up so that way they don't overlap. It actually wasn't an issue there, which is surprising, even though I was looking around quite a bit. It's interesting, I guess, to look at... Well, I don't want... Once there's audio being played, it's going to be more of an issue. When it's just text, it can cancel and overwrite pretty easily. But once there's audio there, I don't want to just be cutting off things. Make sure the door is locked. So that happened a little bit early because it's not quite how it's going to be set up eventually. Door. Still can't bring myself to go in there, not while Grace is still missing. No, you totally can go in there right now. Go through this stuff. Wait, I don't actually... Let me look at the bottle here. It doesn't actually say the name when I look at it. Okay. I think that I kind of have it abstracted to the point where it's just going to show a hand. But for the sake of making a build of this is going to confuse people, right? You look at this capsule, and then it just says, I don't remember last night. It's like, what is that? Is that a giant suppository that makes you forget? Okay, yeah, so it doesn't feel safe. So my move speed feels actually way too high for the environment, which I don't really notice while testing, but going from like something like this is like even if you're, say you're a player and you're a little scared and you're crouching, you're still just gonna say, alright, I have emotional thoughts about my child's room, and then it's immediately gonna say, also I'm creeped out because it's really quiet in here. Which I maybe could like artificially make the house a little bigger, move this hallway out a little bit. It would give me more room downstairs. But I don't think that's an ideal solution. Could mess with a lot of UVs. Plus a lot of hidden issues. I just think that the move speed's probably too high. There really isn't any, like... I think maybe what I do is, like, sprinting is pretty... not that different than the walk, but maybe I make, like, a... probably keep the sprint the same speed, but make walk, like, a lot slower. So that way if the player, like, really wants... I don't know, sprinting doesn't really seem to fit, honestly. It seems a little out of place. Like, I don't have jumping, because jumping would be really awkward and immersion breaking and just weird for someone to be jumping a lot. I should probably mute the audio here. Haven't seen this thing since William and I. Sick English mistake. Look at that. Start a fire. Look at the bloodstain. Oh, okay, it says the name of the object when it tells you the note in the top right. So the name is actually used. I probably shouldn't call this Bloodstain 2. They should probably just both be called Bloodstain. Yeah, so there we go. There's another Bloodstain. Improvised weapon. Improvised with an M. I spelled that wrong. Or it should be improvised with an M. And that really makes the light being there really makes the texture look bad. You can really see the like over normal mapping, or the normal map is way too like deep. Got some okay. Give me those shotgun shells, hell yeah. I feel like the lantern, totally normal light, totally normal amount of light. Like walking around, doesn't seem like it's too. I mean, I guess if you get this close, it really is like too much of a highlight. That's kind of weird. I don't know that I like the way that they changed the lighting, just really because of this. So, like, this is the normal. Like, if you look at the lighting that it's providing to the room, right? Looks correct, totally fine. Like, it's a little bit dim. It's supposed to be a candle, right? So it doesn't quite like light the room up like a light bulb would. Same with this one, right? It has like a pretty reasonable distance. But like, man, that like high intensity. Because if I lower the intensity, actually, let me tweak with the intensity a little bit. I did kind of change how my post-processing deals with lights a little bit. And to be honest, maybe I can turn down some kind of bloom effect. I don't know that I have bloom effect, but that might be a part of the issue. Turn this. Like, even if it's like way, like right there, that's kind of what I would expect, right? Something like that. A bit of a bright highlight. But in order to make it like actually light the room properly, maybe this is probably a little bit better. Just isn't quite right. I can look at my post-processing real quick and see how it's. I don't even have bloom. I have bloom off. Can you use bloom to decrease the intensity of hotspot areas? If I say no, it seems to only be a multiplier. Right? Yeah, I can't like reduce fusion doing. That's just how it's. That would be like the fall off. Yeah. Just can't have bloom. Yeah, I really wish that this kind of like intensity could be. I don't know. It just, I mean, I guess it might be physically correct, but there's something about the way the light seems like it interacts way differently over time. And I don't think that there's a way. Maybe I should look at the settings. I know there are more light settings that exist now. Wait, directional light default. I'm in the wrong area. So it should be SSSS. Okay, wrong. I clicked the wrong asset. Shadows. Sky. Light settings. So screen space reflections, screen space ambient occlusion. This is for the lighting. Okay. Subsurface for scattering. Like, these are all things I want. Enable volumetric. Like, I do want that, but it's possible that's the issue. Is it because it's volumetric, the more intense light area, like, because it's more intense at the center, and then because of the volume, actually, I don't know, because, like, I guess it would be, like, layers upon layers of lighting would maybe multiply towards the center. Atmospheric scattering is totally fine to keep. I don't know that that's going to change it. Yeah, that's not going to change it at runtime. Okay. Man. Enable volumetric. Turn that back on. Alright, note to self. 2018 does not like you turning off the volumetric light. I think maybe if I rebake lighting, it would have been fine. But it really doesn't seem like that should be the issue. And to be honest, on the point lights, I'm not entirely sure that there's even much of a volumetric effect other than the, like, attenuation you can see. Like, alright, so the lantern that I'm holding, I think it bounces between, like, 10 and 80 or something like that, the way it's programmed, if you change the intensity of the lantern. But, like, when it's on the... it's at 24. The 24 has, like, a way too much of a hotspot here. Maybe that's, like, you know, acceptable. Kind of looks decent there, right? It falls off well. Really, these candles and stuff doesn't fit. Okay, so I'm gonna you know what, actually what I should have done there is I should have checked the journal. So I'm gonna go through and look at all the items again, see how it looks in the journal, stare at stuff. Should probably get the lantern. Alright, so stare at the phonograph. Oh, and I should change the bloodstain names. About bottle. That should be empty bottle. Or alcohol. Wait, hold up. I thought I did. Maybe I didn't name. I think I named the object alcohol bottle. Alright, note about kitchen chair. Yeah, the movement speed is really gonna help the pace, I think. Like right now, see the note about your daughter, and then immediately you get another note here. Oh yeah, I forgot about the photo stand-in, family photo. You know what? I need one for when she opens the box too. You know, maybe I mean, another layer solves it, but maybe I should have these ones, like the one that's invisible there for when you go downstairs. I should maybe have that just delete itself after it plays the audio. It's like the glass looks okay, but because of like how intense those candles can be, it makes it look like it's basically invisible because it's so intense. I kind of had an idea a little while ago. Oh wait, it seems like my video is having issue on YouTube. What's up with that? All the encoding and stuff should be the same. I'm not getting anything dropped on OBS. Let me just refresh, see if that helps it. Video output low. That's really strange. I don't really know what that's looking like, but I'm going to be talking about... Oh, wait. Alright, you know what? The stream health went right back up. Alright, fair enough. It was just a little bug on YouTube's end, probably. Yeah, so the fireplace... Completely lost my train of thought because of that. Oh, the lighting, right. So I was thinking about maybe having like a multi-light setup where every light is actually 2 lights. And then what you can do with the lighting, and to be honest, this might be the way I have to do it just because there's not a ton of options, because I can't really keep updating Unity because it is like sort of terrible to have to update it. It's like cost me a lot of time where I'd rather just be like polishing scripts and things like that. So where's the near clip? Yeah, it might be... They like remove that in this version? Oh, near plane. Okay. Near plane. Oh, that's debiased. Whoops. Oh, I forgot. This is just for shadows. Ooh, okay. Never mind. Yeah, I was hoping that this this clipping plane would also clip the light. It just works with shadows. Okay. That's unfortunate. I was thinking maybe you have like a more dim light that kind of fills up where this circle kind of clips things. This, and then have like a smaller light in there so that it has less of a highlight. I don't know, it might just be that I need to completely rethink my post-processing, because like I really like the way the light attenuates. This part looks really good, really realistic. Same for like this area here where they kind of blend together there. Like once I have a more final texture on the ground, it's gonna look really nice. Like, man, these highlights suck. Really like crouch walk around to get a better feel for the pace when I test in the future. Crouch test, make sure that everything paced well and that I can still see all the items and stuff while crouched. Okay, so there's another note. Alright, William and I. Need to fix that. So William and I, Bloodstain, the bottle name. I think I named the improvised weapon wrong. So let's look at the journal real quick. Yep, alright. Let's get rid of light. Oh, it's the reading light as well. Okay, now it's neither of those? How does this work? The lamp isn't on. Oh, the lamp did turn itself on. Okay. That's the way it's going. Oh. Am I standing like right next to a light? Oh, yeah. Wait, am I? Sorta. I'm in the dark room. Green light's off. Definitely the lantern. Green measures, but I really just need to test this. Oh. There we go. Alright, so that one, text kind of overlaps there on the left side. Didn't give enough space for one of the messages, right? Barricade myself in William's study. So that one needs to be 2 lines. Balloon shotgun was on the kitchen table. Okay, so that's a collection of things I need to fix. Alright, so Bloodstain 2 should just be Bloodstain. Surprise weapon is spelled wrong. Fucking nose. What was the other one? Some other note was too long. Study. I think this is it. This one should be 2 lines. The word that was overlapping was the word study. Let me think through real quick, make sure I didn't miss something that I needed to tweak. These notes are fixed. The names are fixed for those items. You need to add a way for your things to trigger by walking through them instead of being looked at. Okay. Move this the present box that more to the corner of the table. Yeah, this desk is getting really crowded. I mean, the journals there is debug, the plates there is debug. But like even then, there's gonna be a lot of stuff on this desk. I think maybe when I'm gonna be making a new model for the fancy desk, and I might make it like maybe a little bit exaggeratedly large. Maybe have it be like a 2-part desk where you have like kind of a flat desk like this, but then also have like a what do they call them? Not a Rolodex, but like a rolling desk where it like rolls back. There's like a little cover on it. I don't know about that. Probably have a candle in here too. Although, yeah, I mean a candle, but it should be off. Alright, yeah, let's do that. I think I remember thinking about that before. I'm gonna go through where I'm at with the dialogue and try to write down some notes of things that I want to change in the future for the dialogue system. Or not the dialogue system, but like what I have so far. Well, perfect. That's right beneath where I wanted it. Putting it here by the gonna be the family photo is good. Yeah, so it should be in there, it'll just be off. It's gonna be weird to think about how this game will go when people rush through it, right? Like if you don't spend much time in the early room, kind of immediately gravitate towards here instead of the lantern, the whole thing's gonna be a lot harder. I mean, the lantern is quite visually striking when you first start, so hopefully that won't happen much, but definitely gonna be some ways that I actually don't really plan on polishing that element up so much. Like if people can kind of go at their own pace, so I'm not really too worried about people that might not pay close enough attention at the start. On that, alright, so candle's working. That looks really nice. I like that. Print screen that. Okay, so the last thing I need to go through, make some notes about dialogue. That means I should go to a more zoomed in view. To go through my dialogue tree a little bit further. So I kind of, since the dialogue section is sort of the culmination of the whole scenario, I kind of have this flow that I'm going to stick to, and like things might skip around. If you have more information, you can kind of skip sections of this sort of. But this is the general flow of the conversation that should carry through, regardless of the information that you know. The kind of vulnerable position you're in as a character and the goals of the person you're talking to will kind of drive it along these lines, hopefully no matter what. So like there's introduction, you finding out who one another are, even though you kind of know each other, but like, you know, going into that and getting the player introduced as well. Dishonest statement of intention, so this is from the other person you're talking to. They're going to basically try to convince you about why they're there, that they have good intentions, and that'll be followed. So I guess I should probably say that this assumes that you know no information, and then you skip around based on more information that you know. So a statement of authority, some reason to trust them. They question you. They make commands of you, basically. So like after that you answer the questions, they're going to say something like, all right, because of this information that I've gathered from you, you need to come with me. We need to go X place. So please like open the door, let me in. Let's go. And then this is kind of where it would branch if you choose to fight against this, even if you've been like kind of following their lead to this point. If you had no information, this would be where you can either get them to an honest statement of intention where you're sort of pressing them a little too much. Maybe they're getting impatient. Their negative intentions start to come out. They start threatening you, which is sort of a similar thing to ordering, but from like a more negative place. So like these whole things might, when you're going from like this early part here, so introduction, dishonest statement, and statement of authority, you could skip these parts and go straight to here, or you can kind of do these in various orders. You may like, you know, get them to do an honest statement of their intention after like having some more information and pressing them here, and that might lead back into questioning. So maybe you actually want to like sort of trade information in the conversation. Statement of hopelessness. So this is where they're going to like make their final attempt to manipulate your behavior, make you do what they want. And this is them like pulling the leverage they have over you, the information they have over you, as someone who's not entirely sure what's going on. And then the final section is action, which is where either you make an action or they make an action to sort of bring the whole scenario to a conclusion. So hopefully this is like a good outline for this conversation, and like a good outline for what this entire, all this data collection that you're doing running around the house is sort of building up to. And you can kind of weave your way through this various ways. So variables being tracked, these are some of the ones I had for my dialogue. So you can threaten him if you get the weapon. You can threaten him. You can say things differently. If you saw the note that the character leaves to themselves, if you saw the improvised weapon, if you saw the blood, both these in the sitting room, or if you saw the note about Robert, which is I think I have the names of people written down. Kathy isn't the name of the character you are. Robert isn't the name of the priest, but I just couldn't remember them at the time. I know I had them written down, but I was kind of leaving it up in the air for so long. And then if you have a gun, that's where you can threaten them. And then after you threaten them once, this will get checked, and then you can. I guess I'm not really using this to have you have more dialogue, but it's more. It branches you into a different path if you've threatened them before. So basically just an option and a response. These red ones, this little red mark here, like the easiest way I can make like a sort of checkbox. This means that I added the next step. So you say hello, this is the response, and then it says the reds here. That means that I have the next set of options that come from this. So I really didn't get that far in, because I figured I needed more planning, which is kind of what I'm doing now. Thinking through it, talking through it, kind of showing what I have a little bit. So I have this first situation, and then if you have the gun, you can threaten them. So this is like someone knocks on your door, and then you can either say, hello, who's there, go away, or you can threaten them. So each of these kind of set things off. We'll set that you threatened them to true. You get a couple more options here, so it goes through after you greet. And so like I'm still kind of in these three right here. So I think like one branch I wrote is questioning, but most of it is between these stages. And it's 5 pages, and all I've done is the sort of introduction to the conversation stuff. So if you saw the note about them, you can quite early. This should be if you say hello. This one should honestly, this should be in both of these. Oh wait, alright, yeah. This one should be in both. I think both of these should share these options. They might need rewrites a little bit to make them fit better. They're gonna be sent to the same spot. So like quite early on after you learn who it is, if you have more information, you should immediately either be able to threaten them, or to sort of hint. So like this threatening one, this was being very direct. This one is supposed to be more that you kind of are hinting that you know more about him and you know that he has dishonest intentions right up front. And you're sort of allowing the possibility for both of you to choose to continue the conversation and get the information you want out of one another, or not just the information, but also like the result you want out of one another. Whereas the one where you need the gun for, that's kind of you starting things off violently, trying to throw your weight around, and potentially if you think that that's the best case or the best way to play the scenario, you might just immediately go and try to shoot them or shoot them. You'd probably succeed, but you might miss. So this next option here, these two are kind of here, hello, and who's there. These one kind of blend together. I think that the reason why I was originally thinking they should be there is that it should sort of inform the way the player wants to go, right? So hello, just you being confused and open to whatever happens next. So this would be like probably the default response. It's gonna be the first response. People that haven't gathered that much information or maybe don't really understand the situation fully. But who's there? This is someone who has a little bit of information and they're trying to narrow things down, right? Like they kind of understand the situation. They maybe are feeling a little bit more empowered because they kind of know what's going on. And then like go away is I have information or I have no idea what's going on and I'm trying to like sort of brute force the outcome I want a little bit. So they kind of give you, they speed you through this flow a little bit quicker. So who's there should be going through to questioning a lot quicker. Whereas hello would kind of meander around, give a lot of opportunity for you to or for the other character to try to manipulate you, basically. So it's like a slower paced progression through it, maybe a little bit more like this step, then this step, then this step, very like rigidly going through. Because this is most likely what people, like both of these are kind of what people who don't really know what's going on would pick. And they probably cross paths at some point, share branches and things like that. So go away. So these ones as well, these sort of more violent ones, they're gonna skip you into these parts. So like this one kind of skips you into questioning, kind of skips some of this stuff. It'll be peppered in with like the way he's talking and might mention some specific things. Kind of skips you there. These violent ones kind of skip you there. So People that this one probably needs to be written, like who's there. This one might need to be a little bit more of an elaborate, like who goes there, what do you want, that sort of thing, to like really drive home the like curiosity element of it. Uh, so that's probably fair. I might make that change that. So hopefully these little threads early on will get the right kind of strategy people might be taking based on what they know. Should get you along those paths quickly. So if you maybe would plan to deal with the situation with violence, having learned what you learned, you can kind of get to that quickly, right? You're gonna get to the distrust part. You're gonna get to these threats and the action part very quickly. If you have a lot of information but you maybe want to play it slow, in order to have like what you might perceive as the best way to get through things, you would probably pick this first option. You know, playing innocent a little bit, but this option, because we're dynamically at so because we're dynamically adding options, this one can start you off along like a kind of basic path, but because of the more information you might know by being the kind of person who's playing that way, you can get a lot more out of this path than maybe this one. Potentially, right? So this one he would be a little bit more off guard if you're following along kind of a more innocent path. And then this one would be you're being a little bit direct, maybe indicating some things, implying some things, maybe trying to overplay your hand a little bit. But in this one, you might be just mining for more information. So, like, if you don't feel satisfied with what you learned, you're not really sure to trust yourself, you're not sure to trust the notes from your husband or any of the stuff you find around the house, this one might be a good one to kind of lead you into maybe being violent or, you know, maybe trying to escape or maybe trying to hide or something like that. I didn't really articulate any of this stuff, so this is kind of more me walking through stuff and figuring things out as much as it is explaining the system and what I have so far. But I think that helps because like when I'm going through this, I'm trying to stick to some of the stuff, so a lot of this stuff just has to be mentioned along any path. So like there would need to be questioning along any path, because otherwise there's no reason for you guys to be talking, right? There's no reason for him to be there, no reason for you to be talking to them. And so you just end up kind of writing a lot of similar seeming things with different contexts, so it's kind of hard to see the big picture like I'm talking about here while you're writing it. Like this is, like I said, this is 5 pages of options and responses, and I've only gotten about here on these branches. And there's going to need to be a lot more like smaller branches that you can only get if you have certain information. That basically just give you more information. I can actually, I didn't do this yet, but I can show. Let me move scenes. Honestly, best to not have. I feel like I might want to remove the information about using the journal, because right now it's sort of up in the air. It's cool how that works. It's actually not too bad. Like all of these options, so like I still don't have it to where if I click on this, it doesn't add into here. I think it might if I reopen it. Yeah, if I reopen it does, but it doesn't do it dynamically. And like unclicking it here doesn't get rid of it like it should. So there's still some basic functionality for note taking and things like that that aren't really relevant right now, which is kind of why I have it just being based on viewing things for the moment. Yeah, let's see. I'll get the stuff that I just walked through, that dialogue stuff. I'll get it a little bit further. It's not going to be complete, but it'll just probably I'll just have it to where it ends the conversation whenever I run out of dialogue for each section. And then from there, I'm mostly working on the journal functionality, which is pretty complex, like marriage of 3D modeling and animation and UI and UX and all that stuff. It's just very, very complicated to work with. It's also working with several systems that I've written over the course of 2 years. So it might just be better to honestly rewrite it, but that's going to slow things down a lot. So I'm trying to avoid that. But thanks for watching, everyone. That's kind of the state that it's at now. That's some of the narrative stuff that I've written that I'm just adding in, stuff I plan to add in. So thanks everyone that stopped by. Later.